Welcome to issue 189 of Critical Encounters, a podcast about Marvel Champions, a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. Here we take a good look at that most critical piece of the game, the encounter set. We'll discuss those poorly understood characters, unfairly labeled villains, and their various plans to shape humanity and benefit the planet, as well as those so-called heroes intent on thwarting them. I'm one of your hosts, Boggs. Joining me is Steve.
Hello.
Bill.
Hello there.
Daniel.
Welcome back, sir. Nice to have you.
Thanks. And Mike.
Hi, Boggs.
Hey, thank you
Nice
guys for having me
chat
on
with
again.
you again. Oh,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
fantastic. Yes, okay, we got a full house tonight. We got the crew. We've got Bill on. We've got Boggs, who we haven't heard from for over a year. And, oh boy, this is awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we can make this work because it is not our usual podcast time. Neither is it a usual time for Boggs, who is currently on the other side of the world.
He's time traveling. It's time
I'm
stuff.
glad we can make this work. Time stuff. Oh, it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow where he is. He's in the future. It's awesome.
I am. Yeah, don't come to the future. It's not good. Stay where you are.
Oh, the villains don't win.
No.
What did you say?
Wow.
I'm sorry.
The villains don't win.
No, unfortunately not. They do not.
Ah. All right.
I was hoping you might tell me the right lottery numbers.
That's actually where the problem stems from.
I see.
That's where it started. So I'm not just going to perpetuate that.
Understood. Makes sense.
All right. Well, before we get into the meat of things, Daniel, I have to ask you this first, just to keep the audience waiting. What's on your mind tonight?
Not a ton. I'm looking up, Mike, and I'm thinking of the vast expanse of space. And you know what's up there, Mike?
5 stars.
5 stars.
Ooh, that was good. That's good.
5 stars, Mike. And this one is not a lot of reading for me tonight. We got 5 stars and then insightful, fun, and lots of regular content. That comes from 1L via Apple Podcasts. Thanks, 1L. That's awesome.
You didn't read the title of the review, though.
Oh, I probably should have. The Best Champions Podcast.
Yeah. All right. There we go.
Yeah.
Take that, Champions
Yeah.
Monthly.
I concur.
Well, we can't have the best podcast without the best game, and we can't have the best game without the best designers. And tonight is an interrogation room with none other than Michael Boggs, former designer of the game. And we wanted to, we've got a ton of new content and different things you haven't been on in a while. And we wanted to be able to pick your brain, talk to you about all the stuff that's come out, see if you were involved in any of that, and just have a nice little conversation. So thanks for coming on with us.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I'm looking forward to the talk.
So Mike did mention it has been over a year since you were on, August in 2022, I think.
Wow.
Issue 128 was our last interview with you. So.
Okay, yeah, that was quite a while ago.
Yeah. At that point, you had mentioned you left FFG and the Marvel Champions line in May of 2022. So since then, we've had a lot released. We've got our X-Men. We had Sinister Motives had come out. That's, I think, what we had talked to you about. And we just got, we've now have the start of the next evolution for the X-Force stuff. So I'm curious. I'm stealing Bill's questions here, but I'm really curious. What level of involvement did you have in our X-Men or X-Force, those boxes?
So with Mutant Genesis, I didn't do a lot of design work for it. In fact, I don't really think I did much of anything aside from, help Caleb with ideas that he had. There was a point where Caleb was working on his new Star Wars deck building game. And so I kind of helped at the end put the files together, get everything organized. But it was mostly just me taking the work that he had completed and making it look prettier, more or less. So that was really it for Mutant Genesis. For the Mojo scenario pack, I kind of I believe I wrote the vision for that one and got the initial designs going for all 3 scenarios and play tested those, a little bit, took them through a couple different iterations. During that process, Tony Fanchi had already joined the Marvel Champions team. And I he was kind of in that was sort of his introductory pack to the game line. And he's a very experienced designer, but there's always going to be new things when you're joining a new team. And so that was kind of his chance to see the process from the beginning. And once that ball got rolling, I kind of handed the pack off to him, and he took it from there. And then with Next Evolution, that one was very similar to Mojo, but I had less involvement in that overall. I did a couple of the scenarios, and I also helped design a few of the heroes after Next Evolution. But again, it was just kind of like early iteration stuff, taking it through a couple different designs, trying to get something that was more of a framework than anything else. And then once that was kind of, functioning to a certain point, I handed the designs off to Tony. And at one point, I moved over into the Arkham Horror LCG team. That was kind of my last couple months at Fantasy Flight, was helping them. So really, I just was helping with early iterations on most of the stuff that we're seeing now.
Okay, cool.
Well, since you brought up helping the Arkham team, do you mind if I ask what you worked on over there?
I can't remember the name, unfortunately. What the newest product that was just announced?
They just announced a Feast for Hemlock
That's
Grove.
the one. Yeah. I worked together with Duke on that, and yeah, it was. But again, it was kind of a very similar thing where it was early iterations of stuff. I was helping with. I'm much less familiar with Arkham than I am with Champions, so I was in more of a support role there, really for Duke. I tried to design some stuff, but Arkham has been it's a game that's been out for so long. It has so many cards and stuff that there'd be times where I'd come up with some brilliant idea and pitch it to, Duke and Maxine, and they'd be like, no, yeah, that was like 3 sets ago. We made that card. So I was like, oh, okay, never mind. Not as smart as I thought it was. So, but I tried to help as much as I could, and I found myself like doing things that were more on the back end, a little less design stuff, and a little more of all the other stuff. So. Yeah, I helped with that, but very much just in a support role.
Yeah, so getting back to the Marvel Champions, though, we're just kind of interested to see, Michael, so going into this campaign box, which you said you had a little bit of involvement there in the beginnings, getting things ready, so you at this point, though, you would have had quite a bit of data from out in the wild, people who are playing the other campaign boxes like the Red Skull and Galaxy's Most Wanted, Man Titan Shadow. I'm assuming that all of those were already released by the time that work had began on Next Evolution. Is that right? Does that seem?
Yeah. Up till I think Sinister Motives had just released, or maybe it released. It might have released like in the middle.
I think
of
Yeah. So last time you were on the show, we were looking forward to Sinister Motives, I think. And but prior to this, so there was a lot of player involvement now. There was data coming back from the wild. And so I was just kind of curious about how much player feedback influenced the direction that you would take Next Evolution into, as far as difficulty and so forth.
Well, I feel like by the time we got to Next Evolution, we had sort of found a formula that had worked from all of the past campaigns, the past scenarios. I think Tony did a really excellent job in sort of solidifying that further. But like in terms of like campaign, one of the like if you go and look at all of the campaigns across all the boxes, they're all different, and that's always been intentional. We've always tried to do a different experience per box, so there's a reason to play one box over another. It's not just about the theme. There are other gameplay elements that kind of encourage you to do so, and so like on some levels, I guess the campaign in the Next Evolution box wasn't influenced all that much by anything beyond just us wanting it to operate differently. But like the villain balance and some of the effects and stuff that we were willing to put on cards or not willing to put on cards, that was definitely influenced by past data points.
Yeah. So Red Skull would be kind of like the entry level, and then Galaxy's Most Wanted was purposely designed to be a much more of a challenge to the players. And so playing through this campaign, which is a lot of fun, and just being out in the community and talking to people, it seems like that the level is it's very nice, because I was able to play through the campaign on standard and use cards just from the box in order to be able to defeat the campaign on standard. Then I jumped up to expert, and I found out quickly that I was a little over my head, so I kind of pulled back a little bit, and I thought, I better have some cards from some of the other sets in now. It seems like it's a really, really good balance of difficulty, and just wondering like how much previous information kind of helped to balance that out, and or if is that what the other guys are finding as you're playing through the campaign too, like Steve or.
I actually don't have it yet, so I'm going to defer to the other.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. It's my and my game store is something happened. They haven't delivered anything yet, so
it's hidden somewhere in the layer, Mike, and you have to find it. You're going to play hot and cold with our minions, and you'll locate your box. But yeah, I always find that usually you can, maybe from Sinister Motives on, you could take, maybe Mad Titan Shadow too, you could take a pre-con deck and play on standard and have a pretty good chance of winning. And then as soon as you hit expert, it's like, nope, not going to work. I would say you had mentioned that you might have had some influence on a few of the hero packs in this wave. We get Cable and Domino in the box, and then there's Archangel, Psylocke, X-23, and Dreadpool. Which one of those did you have any influence on, or that, you know, where did you really stop at with those?
Yeah, so for I worked very specifically on Angel, X-23, and Psylocke. Kind of took them through multiple iterations. Did I think pretty much all of their aspect and basic cards. They were sort of Tony and I split the heroes. He had Domino, Cable, and Dreadpool, and I had the other three. And you know, seeing their release articles with Angel and X-23, it looks like their designs are largely intact. Like a lot of the stuff, you know, made its way through from the iterations that I play tested, which isn't always the case. There have been plenty of times in the past where, you know, I'll start designing a hero, have a mechanic that I'm really excited for, and then as you play test it, you just realize it's not working for some reason. It's not fun. You know, there's a lot of different reasons that you might want to change a hero entirely, completely redesign them. But it looks like, you know, X-23 and Angel, at the very least, that the core idea function well enough to continue with. Psylocke is pretty different from what she was before, but in seeing her cards, I actually think she honestly looks better. She looks more fun. She was a little bit clunky, and that was something I was trying to work out in her play testing before, you know, trying to sort of smooth out the clunkiness, make it a little more intuitive. And I think Tony came up with an idea that's works really well, or it seems to. I haven't played her new version, but I like her changes quite a bit. So those were kind of the three that I touched. And then there's a hero in the next wave. I just remember that one that I worked on very, very briefly. I was sort of on my way out the door when I helped with that one, but there will be one more hero coming up that I kind of helped with.
Oh, that's cool. All right.
So you were involved with kind of decision making on the additional aspect of Pool? Were you on that?
Yeah. So I believe Tony was the one who originally sort of envisioned that the Pool aspect. But after, you know, talking with him about it, like, yeah, him and I in the vision document that was sort of sent to the upper management to you know, approve the product wave or deny it for whatever reason, it included that idea of like, here's the Pool aspect and here's sort of what it does. It adds a lot of like these risk reward elements, and I got to help with the design of some of the cards, but I think, you know, the Pool aspect is you know, almost all Tony. Like, it's he was the one who came up with the idea, and he's the one who like really fleshed it out, but I was sort of in the background cheering him on.
Okay, you said you did Angel, so you brought our third foldable card into the game. Was that like an early idea, like Angel has to have these wings that unfold, or like how did that one come about? Because that's very interesting with the three sides of the hero.
That was, again, I think it was in the vision document. So it was something that Caleb and Tony and I all kind of talked about. And that the foldable card is something that we all liked. We always thought was kind of a fun space. And with Angel, it just kind of, seemed to make sense. You're unfolding his wings. He kind of, growing, especially with like the Archangel, the metal wings are supposed to spread out. And yeah, it just seemed to work with his two different forms. So I think there was an idea floated for a while of just doing, another card, which was the same for like Ant-Man and Wasp. But since we've already done the folding cards in the past, and there's sort of the groundwork has been laid for those. So I think getting those figured out in the past, it was a little bit tricky at first, but now that we know how they work in the production, all that type of stuff, it was like, yeah, let's just do it. Haven't done it in a long time, and it makes sense for him.
Yeah, you're gonna grief the community with one more. How do I sleeve this one card? So on your way out the door.
That's what we like to see. If we could do every hero that way, we would, but unfortunately, it doesn't always fit.
Okay.
I do like that Michael admitted that the game continues beyond this box, though, in this way.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
So I guess rumors of this game's death are perhaps.
Yeah. That was something I saw a little while back with, there was like the delay in the announcement of Next Evolution. And I saw a lot of chatter. Oh, the game's being canceled and stuff. Like, I would be very, very surprised if this game is canceled within the next couple years. Like, when I left FFG, it was still going very strongly. It was one of the, regularly one of the best-selling FFG games per month. And it doesn't seem like it's slowed down since then. So I think as long as it's making money, then it's going to keep getting new content, and it seems to be making a lot of money. So it'll be around for a while, I think.
Yeah, I think as a general rule of thumb, if they're still hiring designers for the game, then it's not dead.
Yeah, exactly.
If you gauge it by how many content creators are coming out of the woodwork to produce content, it seems like every hour there's a new video popping up on YouTube.
Sign of a
people
good
playing
community
through the game. Just a lot of
All right, so I think last time, I don't even remember if Sinister Motives had released, or was it
getting ready to?
It was getting ready to. Okay, well, in that case, Boggs, what a capstone to put on your career at FFG. To end off on that one, because we were chatting about this a couple episodes ago, and Sinister Motives is far and away a community favorite. So pat yourself on the back for that one. That's a lot of fun, and has my personal best scenario in the game in it, which is Mysterio.
Oh yeah, I love Mysterio. I loved playing against. I think that's my favorite one in the box.
Did you design that? One?
Yeah. I designed Mysterio. He was I always really liked how his mechanic sort of. I love the dread that comes with it. Like, I really want to draw those cards, but I really don't want to draw those cards.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that.
Up to the point of Sinister Motives, Rhino was my go-to for playtesting brand new heroes. But then after that came out, then I had two more that I could add to it, like Sandman, and then especially Venom. I think Venom is probably my favorite in the entire.
Oh, awesome!
The entire game, and I just like the ability to be able to start out kind of building up my board state. He's not threading us out right away, and I just like the build up that he has as well. So to me, it's like, for me, it was a perfect villain to kind of test out some new heroes or try out some new decks. And so I've got a lot of games with Venom. Awesome. I really enjoy that one.
Yeah. I always like playing against him too. I like the kind of the mind games that Mysterio throws out, but I think Venom's probably my second favorite in the box, or maybe Sandman. I always really like Sandman too. Those are three of my favorite Spider-Man villains, though. So I'm happy to see any one of them, kind of be an interesting scenario.
All right, so we're talking favorites here. We kind of know what you like out of Sinister Motives. Do you have any other scenarios from the other boxes that you think, they're your maybe a favorite in each box if you could remember them, or maybe just overall in the game?
Oh man, in Red Skull, I always really liked playing against Taskmaster. I always found Taskmaster to be. I liked his mechanic, and Red Skull as well. Red Skull's a lot of fun. In Galaxy's Most Wanted, I like the escape the museum scenario. I like how that kind of changes things a little bit.
Okay, that's a good one.
And the same way in Mad Titan Shadow, Hela is a lot of fun. I've heard that the Hela, and to a lesser extent maybe like the Escape Museum, like those are kind of how they have like similar functionality to the Lord of the Rings card game. And I think I need to play, yeah, the Lord of the Rings card game because those I really
Okay.
like the functionality
Yeah.
of both those scenarios. So I've played Lord of the Rings maybe once or twice, but it was like in helping Jeremy's Wern test like a thing. So I didn't really get a good experience with the game. But
So, Michael, you haven't heard our Mike belly aching about Hella for the last year and a half.
maybe a little bit, maybe.
Because everyone else thinks Hella is one of the best scenarios of all time. Because you're right. So, yeah.
Wow.
To Mike's credit, he does like Galaxy's Most Wanted. He's a big proponent of that, right?
That's true.
Yeah, there we go.
Maybe Hela just needs more Surge. I think that's the happy middle ground.
It needs more. It needs another character.
Yeah. Maybe that's
Yeah.
it. And then in Sinister Motives, yeah, I think definitely Mysterio. And then in Next Evolution, I never got to play the sort of the final iterations of everything. So it's hard to say. Like it was all early iterative stuff. I remember really liking Juggernaut at the time, and from what I can remember, he seems similar to his early iteration. So yeah, he looks like a lot of fun. I've heard a lot of people say that he's fun. So I'm excited to give him a go in his final form.
So, looking back, another favorites question: what hero packs were your favorites? And I will let you decide what that means.
Oh, that's a good question. Hero packs are my favorites.
Should we not let him choose one of the 20 hero packs he designed himself, or does he have to choose someone else's?
Up to him. I'm going to let him decide.
I'll try to choose. I'll choose one of mine and one of Caleb's. How about that?
Sure.
For ones that I designed, I have pretty fond memories of the like the Sinister Motives wave. I always like pretty much all of those were fun to do, but probably the one that I really enjoyed the most was Spider, because I got to work with Maxine or MJ Newman on that one, and she did an amazing job. I helped with a lot of the aspect side of things and a little bit of the hero stuff, but it was mostly her doing the hero functionality and figuring out how the kind of that mech gameplay worked. And I really love Spider's sort of gimmick as well. Like it's so interesting. You when you first play her, I heard a lot of testers, sort of go through this phase of like, oh, she only gets a couple cards in her hand, she's so weak, and then you play and you're like, oh no, Spider can actually be very, very powerful, but she just has a very specific puzzle you're trying to solve as you go through her kit. So yeah, I'd say probably that one. That entire wave, like I could really probably pick any hero from that wave. And they'd be a good answer for me, but I think Spider is probably the one that stands out most because I got to work directly with Maxine. And then for one of Caleb's, I would say maybe I always really liked, it's either Star-Lord or maybe it is maybe it's Nebula. Star-Lord Star-Lord, Caleb kind of designed the initial Star-Lord kit, took it through a couple iterations, and then handed it off to me, almost in the way that like I did that with Tony on like Mojo or Next Evolution. He handed it off to me, and then I kind of helped take it through playtesting and make any changes from the feedback. But it was really Caleb's idea for how Star-Lord works. But then also Nebula and the Mad Titan Shadow Wave. Nebula was kind of the opposite, where I put together the initial iteration and then handed it off to Caleb. And I think Nebula kind of changed enough where I would actually say it's maybe more of a Caleb hero than it was a Boggs hero. I kind of helped with some ideas, but she was tweaked enough that her functionality is different. But I always liked how she ended up. Like her forms, her putting down the techniques and having to flip to alter ego and all that type of stuff. I like flipping to alter ego a lot. So anything that sort of encourages me to do that and like have me go back and forth and really try to build up my board, I have a lot of fun with. Be one of those two, I think.
I didn't realize Caleb was such a villain at heart, making Star-Lord
Yep.
and Nebula. And Cyclops, so I guess I should have known.
I've got a question with regards to how these heroes were credited. So I noticed, like, we were talking about the Spider Wave, that like Nova was one that was credited to you, and Ironheart. But as you go through all the different heroes and you look at the different credit sheets, you'll see that in some instances there was like 2 people credited for the design of it, or like in the case of the Galaxy's Most Wanted wave, there's like 3, like Caleb, yourself, and Jeremy on Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Venom. So is there a reason why in some instances it's just 1 person that's credited, and then in other instances it's 2 or 3 that was credited on there, or is it just a consistency thing, or is it, or how did they figure who to credit the hero to?
Yeah, that's a great question. So every single product is sort of assigned to one person to oversee, but that product is not necessarily just for them to design and make all the decisions on alone. So like on Galaxy's Most Wanted, I believe there were a couple. It was myself, it was Caleb, it was Jeremy. Was Aaron Holtum also on there? I think maybe even
He did Groot, right?
yeah, Aaron Holtum helped with Groot, and Aaron helped with a few of the scenarios. Yeah, it was myself, Aaron Holtum, Caleb Grace, MJ Newman, and then Jeremy Zwern. So and the top 3, Michael, Aaron, and with Caleb. So myself and Aaron, we kind of worked on it very directly. We discussed. I would say like probably a good like 60%. If I had to assign it like a number, 60% of the content within the box was like a direct result of the work that Aaron and I created. And then Caleb was another good chunk. Like Caleb, especially at that time, he was sort of the maybe filter isn't the right word, but in a way, like things would have to pass through Caleb. He was the lead on the game, even though I was the lead on the box. He was the lead on the game, and so it was sort of his job to oversee everything and sort of make sure that the product line was kind of moving in a very specific direction, was giving a certain experience, or was represented in a certain way. And so like I was kind of tasked with making the box, putting the things together, running through playtesting. But at the end of the day, like a lot of that had to pass through Caleb, and he either had to approve it or deny it, which itself was then, would go on to like someone like Nate French, who is the head developer of the studio, or some of the executives even at like Asmodee. So there's like multiple levels of approval for a product to go out the door. And Caleb was part of that step. So Caleb also helped very directly with ideas. He was integral in figuring out the functionality of like the ship, the Milano, that sort of the one that passes around the table as you play. I remember he helped with quite a few of the scenarios, ideas there. Things like the what's that one set you get as you play through the campaign? Is like the
market.
No, not the market. Oh yeah, he helped with the market a bit.
Oh, no,
The Badoon, Badoon Headhunter.
The Badoon Headhunter.
Like that idea of like there's this character following you and you have to fight him, and as you beat him, he'll like come back stronger. All that type of stuff. Those were ideas that Caleb, was like, oh, we should put this in. This will add an extra layer. And so he was helping design along with Aaron and I. Aaron and I were doing the majority of like the grunt work, but Caleb was also there to help. And then Maxine Newman and also Jeremy Zwern, they were sort of doing very similar stuff. They were there to help bounce ideas. They were there to help play test, and kind of they were there to. Sometimes they would pitch new ideas, make suggestions, and they were sort of kind of tweaks or even like direct cards that were made from things that they would come up with. And so it sort of is almost in a way, it's like a ranking system. So if you see like the word "and," it means that 2 people did a very similar amount of work. So myself and Aaron, I think I did more with the box, but he was, he did pretty much the design of Groot. He helped very directly. Oh, Caleb also did Rocket, so he helped very directly with the design of Rocket. And then there was one of the scenarios that he helped kind of design at the beginning, and then another one that he would kind of help me bounce ideas with. So it was Aaron and I were kind of doing the majority of all the tasks, completing those. Caleb was helping to sort of oversee and give more direct ideas, more direct feedback, and very specific changes that he wanted in the box. And then MJ and Jeremy would sort of help in the background and give additional sort of feedback and stuff like that. And 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 means similar amount of work. A with means like kind of in a support role of that work.
Is this true of all the games, Michael, or was the layering of approval, is it different for Marvel because of the licensing and such?
Marvel was kind of the licensing definitely adds another layer. Any game, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, all of those, they're going to have an extra layer. And then also too, Marvel, because at this time, even in the Galaxy's Most Wanted, this was our second expansion, but it was still a relatively new game.
Sure. Okay.
I think Caleb was definitely in a more hands-on role at that time. As the game went on, and he had other priorities like the Star Wars deck building game. I think he was happy to sort of like kind of pass that responsibility along. But yeah, there for a long time, I think he was much more in the driver's seat in a sense. But in some games, it just sort of depends on the team. Like I know that like on the Arkham Horror game, MJ Newman, she was in a very similar role to Caleb, where she had people that she worked with. I know she worked with Jeremy Zwern. I worked with her. Duke Harris worked with her. But for a long time, she was sort of the one to sort of to make all the final decisions, to oversee the entire game as a whole. But
Okay.
Her oversight still needs to be approved by all the upper levels. So I think most games probably follow a similar structure.
There's like a overseeing villain, then there's some elite minions, and then maybe a minion in there too.
That's exactly how it is.
I can wrap my head around that. Okay, makes sense.
I was thinking more like an all-star team. This is like all the names that were mentioned here. I played other games that they were part of too, like Jeremy. He was involved in Destiny, and that was a big game for me. And so, just hearing Caleb and all the different ones working together on this, it was really neat to hear. You mentioned all the different ones that had input in various ways in the box. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The Galaxy's Most Wanted box, I know for some people it's been a little contentious, but it was a fun product to work on. Getting to work, along with everybody. It was sometimes it when you have that many people working on a box, it can be a little difficult to juggle ideas and kind of figure out what. There's a lot of ideas, there's a lot of suggestions, and not everything's always going to work. So it can be tricky to sort of pinpoint sort of what is the best way to move forward. But it was still a very fun process. It was every single Aaron, MJ, Caleb, Jeremy, they're all very talented people. So it was a good learning experience on my part.
As a designer, do you like the too many cooks in the kitchen, or do you like to be kind of left on your own more?
That's a good question. I think I tend to. I really like working with people, but I also sometimes it's. I think I tend to work best when I can kind of like sit back and do my thing for a little bit, and then come and and kind of talk about it. It's not whenever sort of a team structure or a project structure ends up being this like very like you're constantly bouncing ideas, you're constantly sort of going through different channels. Like it's not necessarily frustrating, but I feel like the it doesn't flow as well. Whereas if like if you can assign someone a task, let them go and sort of complete that task to the best of their ability, and then come back a little bit later and sort of review that. And of course, there's got to be checkpoints and stuff along the way. You can't just, I don't think it's ever great when team members are totally divided and nobody knows what anyone else is working on. But I think there's sort of a happy medium there between having sort of like these little pods that everyone is sort of broken up into, compared to like just this constant mesh of ideas. Like, I think finding that middle ground is good for me as a designer. It always helps when I can have the freedom to do what I need to do to make a design or a product work. But at the same time, I'm sort of working with the teammates to come up with the best product that we can make.
Cool, thank you.
So there's a lot of products out there. You did a lot, but you didn't do all of them. Is there a hero that you wish, or even is there a hero you wish you got to make? Maybe it's somebody else made it, or maybe it just hasn't been made yet, and you really were like, man, I want to really make this character. Do you have one?
I feel like pretty much all of the characters that I wanted to see in the game got in the game. I was always, I'm a big Spider-Man fan, so like seeing kind of like the own Spider-Man wave. There was a lot of the growing up, a lot of the X-Men that I wanted to see have kind of made their way in. Probably the only character I can think of is maybe Lady Stiltman. Lady Stiltman is absolutely my favorite. So once
Lady Stiltman,
yep. Once they put in Lady Stiltman,
okay.
I think that is the sign that the game is coming to a close, because you just can't top that. So that is the maybe it's best if we don't see Lady Stiltman for a while, because that'll be a sad day.
Lady Stiltman. Oh yeah. Okay. You didn't make that up.
Yeah, no,
Someone
Lady
else did.
Stiltman's a real
All
thing.
right.
No, I really can't think of any characters. I love the X-Men, and it's really been cool to see, especially like the X-Force. Psylocke was one that I always really enjoyed as a kid. So it was cool to see Psylocke come about. X-23 was another one that I really liked as a kid. Deadpool's a lot of fun. Like pretty much every hero, and there's still more down the line too. There's still more coming. I really, any hero that I can think of, I think we'll see one day. Like there's such a large roster of Marvel characters, but the game's also still like chugging along with more products. So I think we'll definitely see all the major characters eventually.
Sure. Yeah, I just wasn't sure if there's one you're like, man, I just never got a chance to make that one. Was there a villain maybe that you really want to make, like a Spot villain? Mike would be real happy for that. Or
I would have been happy with that. I love Spot. Yeah, Spot would have been really cool. But I've seen quite a few people say that they wish that the Sinister Six scenario had been like a Doc Ock only scenario. And I don't know. I like the Sinister Six scenario, and I think like on some levels, like the Sinister Six just as a villain group needed to exist in the game just because of how iconic they are. But I also do wish that we maybe could have put a sixth scenario in the box and had Doc Ock, because I kind of agree. I think a Doc Ock scenario would have been extremely fun to design. It would have been, and it was even something that we kind of talked about a little bit, not a sixth scenario, but like, instead of Sandman or Venom or Mysterio or even Venom Goblin to an extent, like, we put Dr. Octopus in there instead, and it, we ended up on the villain group that we did just because Dr. Octopus fit so well within the Sinister Six. But yeah, it would have been, maybe, I don't know, maybe one day he can get his own scenario pack or something. Like it would be cool to see him have his own standalone thing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, the Sinister Motives block, that wasn't a part of the original pitch, right? From what I understood from previous interviews, there was the Infinity block, and then there was going to be the X-Men block. So that Sinister one was kind of an afterthought or squeezed in later. Is that how that worked? So we got Spider-Man.
Yeah. We finished up, or I guess we weren't quite finished. It was coming to a close on the Mad Titan Shadow wave, and we were moving into X-Men, and there was some difficulty there with like the scheduling. I can't remember the specifics of it. I think something with licensing or something, but between that and then just like some other talk and stuff, it was like let's put something in between Titans and X-Men, because we knew that the X-Men stuff was gonna be multiple sets, just like how Mad Titans had been like kind of multiple waves of adventures. So before starting sort of another kind of like set journey in a sense, like let's just have something that's a little more standalone that kind of helps break up the pace. And we talked about a couple different things, but I think Caleb really pushed forward the idea of a Spider Person wave because he knew how much I kind of liked that group of heroes, and we felt like it was a good opportunity. We had Miss Marvel in the game already. She'd been out for a little while, and she was like our only champion. It was like, okay, well, Miles Morales both has spider powers, but he's also in the champions, so maybe we can make something there work. And it felt like a good opportunity to sort of do a couple different things.
Can't help but wonder if there was a block that we weren't aware of at the beginning. We knew of like the Infinity block as it was unfolding. I can't help, and I know I can't ask, but I know I can't help but hope that there's like another whole entire block just sitting out there waiting to be made.
I wouldn't be too surprised if there was.
Yeah, I would expect too. Maybe we had the Infinity set of 3, and we got our little palette cleanser with the Spider-Verse, or the Spider People, and then we're going to get all these mutants, and then maybe we'll get a single standalone box, and then another 3. Like, that'd be good, right? You can sneak in these ones that don't necessarily warrant, like, 3 big boxes. That'd be cool. Well, I think that's a lot of our specific Marvel questions. We have some more general designer questions I think we wanted to ask. Because in previous interviews, you've mentioned that you're like a game designer at heart, right? So you left FFG, you moved across the world, where you are now in the future from where we are. Are you still working on games? Have you been able to work on any games? Are you making anything?
Yeah, I am. So my full-time job, I'm working at a game studio right now. I'm working as a narrative designer. And sort of in my free time, weekdays and weeknights and weekends, I've been designing and developing a new project that I've been working with a friend on for a long time. So still kind of keeping in the industry. The narrative design stuff, that's just kind of been my full-time job, but the other project, it's something that will be announced later, and has kind of been my I guess my almost like a passion project in a way.
Is this a studio that we know of? Are we going to see your name on some stuff soon? Can you talk about any of that, or not yet?
I can't talk about any of it yet. Maybe in the future.
Okay.
It's like, so my the thing that I've been working on with a friend. We've kind of got some stuff lined up. Next year, I think we'll be able to announce some stuff. And then the studio that I'm working with now, it's my wife and I, we live in China, and we're currently in Shanghai, and it's just like a little game studio that they don't make the best games, but they give a paycheck, so it's something I can put on the resume. I don't know if I would tell people the studio even if I could. It's
okay.
It's not the most prestigious place, but it's fine. It's a nice work environment. The pay is okay, so it's definitely not the worst job to have. It's better than teaching, in my opinion. I like teaching, but it's a lot easier than that. So those are kind of my two options here.
Daniel gets that. He's a long-time teacher.
Yeah. Teaching's a lot of fun, but it can be overwhelming at times. It can be very frustrating. So this is a lot less pressure.
I'm just excited that we get another game with Michael Boggs possibly on the box.
Yeah, thank you. I'm looking forward to when it's announced. It's been a lot of fun to work on. So can't wait.
So Bill just said, he's excited for anything from Michael Boggs. You're out there, you're making games, you made this game, you've made other games, or you've worked on all kinds of stuff. Feedback from people in the community, positive, negative feedback. How does that affect you? How does that impact your designs? Are you able to shrug off the bad stuff? Do you internalize that? I mean, it's got to be tough, right?
Yeah, on some levels, but I do think that's part of the position, being in a design position. I've always felt like I'm pretty decent at being able to sort of separate kind of the work from sort of the designer. I know that I've worked with people in the past. I've seen people in the past that will design something, and then when you give them feedback on it, they don't necessarily get defensive, but I feel like they feel attached. Like, oh, I put this energy, I put this passion into this to make this thing. You don't like it, so now I'm kind of hurt. I don't really get like that so much. I feel like once I create a thing, to me, there's this level of detachment. I've created this thing, and yes, I'm the one who made it, but it exists beyond me in a way. And in that sense, like I think it should be able to be crafted and criticized by people to make it better ultimately. And that's sort of how I've always looked at it. So like, yeah, there have definitely been things that I've put out into the world that didn't resonate with people, that people really didn't like. But I see that more as just like a learning experience than anything else. Like it sucks that people don't like it. I wish that they did, but I think it shows me an opportunity where I can improve in the future, where I can kind of change course and try to refine the process down the road. And in the same way, for me, it kind of goes both ways. It's if I put something out that people really, really like, that's awesome. I'm glad that they do. But there is this, again, level of detachment where, it's not necessarily me like, I'm happy when people like the stuff, but I think more than anything, I'm happy to see that like, oh, this type of thing works. Like this resonates with people, which is in and of itself like another sort of learning experience. So that's kind of how I've always approached the design process.
Okay, so all those mean things Daniel was saying behind
Totally
your back don't
fine.
really bother
Yeah,
you.
it's
Okay.
and I deserve all
thank
of them.
goodness.
So it's fair, but
I'm starting to
no.
lose sleep about it. Um, just in terms of like design and stuff, Michael. So you're working on a game for as long as you did, and a style of games with FFG too, like card games and living card games. And are you seeing yourself now being able to kind of stretch your wings a little bit more as a designer and push different boundaries and explore different things?
Yeah, I think so. Especially, now that I'm sort of doing my own stuff. There's of course, so much more freedom that comes with that. But before I ever started working at FFG, I had some like independent designs that I worked on. And right before I was hired at FFG, I was in talks with a publisher for one of my designs. But like even looking back at that design, at the time the publisher seemed to really like it, but like I don't think I would want to pitch that game today. I think I have grown as a designer, and I think the opportunity to work at FFG, to work with such talented people like that, those things have definitely helped me, kind of shape my processes to kind of understand how to make things that are more fun. I really do think I'm a better designer today than when I was first hired at FFG. But having that experience and kind of being able to kind of grow in that environment, I think like has sort of created the situation now where it's like I'm trying to create things that challenge me and that are things that I really want to see out in the world that maybe I haven't seen in other places. That I want to make something new and fun and interesting. That is like not just just the same type of stuff I've done before. So it's been a lot of fun to sort of have that freedom to kind of be able to make the decisions that I want to make and not be told, oh, we need to make this specific product with these specific characters at this specific time. That in and of itself is very fun, but you're always kind of working in this box, and it's nice to be able to now like kind of break free from that box. Yeah,
Beautiful.
Good question.
Thank you.
All right, so Boggs, we've worked at FFG with all these great designers, but they can't all be amazing people and fun to work with and stuff. There's got to be some really juicy gossip you have about FFG. What can you tell us?
Yeah, I mean, most designers were a pleasure to work with, and FFG was a lot of fun to work at overall. But really, if I had to just pick anyone that was the worst, it would be I've got some things that I can tell you about. For instance, he was this guy. It was very. He was always, just kind of looking outside and just, really deep discussion about stuff. He's a fun player. He's so many efforts. Yeah, he was a valuable athlete in the sense that he from he don't he kind of just yeah, that's absolutely like probably the most terrible experience that I've had at FFG, just working alongside him. Yeah.
Wow. I can't believe he.
I know. I probably shouldn't. I know we're being recorded, but I had to get it off my chest. I appreciate the question.
I hope.
Oh.
Okay.
Yikes.
All right.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, we better switch gears after that
I
one.
wasn't expecting that one.
Whew.
I can't tell if I'm delighted or terrified.
That's what he does to people. That's exactly how he
changes
works.
your opinion on everything.
Yeah. I thought he was such a nice guy.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay. Well, switching gears. If you could go to dinner with any game designer in history, who would it be and why?
Oh man, any game designer in history. That is a
Apparently not.
Yeah, definitely. No, that. Ooh, I don't think I'd be able to eat. I think I would. Yeah.
We're trying to switch gears.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I would say probably. So when I was young, I like high school and college, I played a lot of World of Warcraft, like way too much World of Warcraft. And back then I used to love reading. So every month, I think the lead designer of the project, he went by Ghostcrawler. He would kind of put out these posts on the World of Warcraft website about like upcoming design changes, why they had decided on these things, how their process worked, all just this insight into the game and the design team, to let the community know that they were listening to feedback, and that they were trying to make the game the best it could be, and that it wasn't just them kind of doing whatever they wanted to do, that the players actually had a say in shaping the game. And as a player, I always really loved that. But as someone in college who wanted to be a game designer, it was just it was fascinating to almost study in a way, to sort of see that process from the outside, and to kind of, in some ways, I think at FFG, I have brought a lot of the things that I learned from reading those posts and kind of following sort of their processes back then. I think it really did help shape me. And I know that guy, his name's Greg Street. He went on to work at Riot Games. He was, for a long time, I think he was heading the Riot Games MMO that's been, I don't think it's officially been announced, but they've kind of talked about it, in whispers and stuff. So if I had to pick anyone, probably him. He's had a very kind of interesting career, and I think it's just, it'd just be cool to just chat with him about the way that he does stuff, the way that he approaches problems, because he's worked on some of the most successful games of all time. So yeah, I'd probably have to pick Ghostcrawler, I think.
Nice.
All right, Michael, we're gonna throw you a big party, and it's a karaoke party, and it's your turn to sing. What do you ask us to play?
First of all, at this party, because I don't know if I want to. If he's there, I'm going home.
No,
I think that based on what you said before.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm up to the mic. I gotta sing. I would probably sing "Holy Diver" by Rodney James Dio, I think. Yeah, that's so in in Korea, Japan, Thailand, China. There's these it's kind of like karaoke, but they're just like little rooms where you can just go with your friends. Usually you can have up to 8 or 10 people in a room. And you can sit there, you have drinks and food and stuff, and you guys can kind of have your own karaoke. Here in China they call them KTVs. Yeah, that's usually my song. That's my closing song generally. Is Holy Diver.
Sweet.
What about
I don't think Dio's ever been brought up on the podcast, has he?
No.
I don't think so.
This might be a first.
So or if you were to do a duet with, I mean, can you come
Oh,
up
a
with something
duet. Oh,
Sonny and Cher, or
When
yeah,
did you leave my wings?
maybe
Yeah.
something.
Little islands in the stream. Little...
That's a tricky one. Yeah, I might let take that one. I think he has a very he's got that high falsetto voice. If you've ever heard him talk, it's just like he's like a squeak toy.
Oh,
Yeah. So I'd probably let him. That was probably in the background. Yeah. So I'd let take the high part and I'd take the low part, whatever it was. But I'd let him pick because I want to make sure that it's high enough for him. I don't want the part to be too low for him.
Right.
So here's a question for you. Any advice that you could offer to an amateur game designer or for someone who's hoping to break into the business of designing games?
Oh yeah, sure. So amateur game designer, I kind of mentioned that before FFG. I kind of did some indie designs for a long time. I was living in South Korea, in Seoul, South Korea at the time. And while I was there, I started going to this board game shop and made friends with the owner and started this weekly board game designer meetup group. We would meet like every Tuesday, I think. And a lot of people would come through. And, I was still amateur myself at that time, but you very quickly, once you start to meet other designers and even in the industry sometimes, I think you can pretty quickly discern like who is very comfortable in that role and who is not. And I think the people who tend to be comfortable in that role and tend to be most confident in that role are the people who can have a little bit of that detachment, who aren't so defensive with their designs, but then also can follow through with designs. Sometimes you might see someone that they bring in a design, play something one week, bring a brand new thing the next week, bring in a brand new thing, and they're just like each one of these things, they're just ideas. Or they might come in and not have anything, and they would just talk and talk and talk about this grand idea that they had, but they hadn't actually, put pen to paper. So I think my main advice is to, create the game that you want to make, which I know sounds kind of silly, but it's very easy to kind of get stuck in your own head. And I even do it to this day. Like it's you come up with this concept, this something you're really excited for, but then that's as far as it goes. Like take the steps to actually put it into a tangible format to be able to play it. And then, once you have that, understand that it sort of does, the design kind of exists beyond you, and it's sort of, you need to have a level of detachment from it. You need to be willing to shape it based on the feedback of people around you that you trust. And that's the only way you're going to make it grow. You can't create something but then be so defensive that you don't actually let it sort of go on its own and kind of grow into what it can be. I would say, for anyone who's really trying to get into design work, it's a process of just trial and error. A lot of times you make something, you play it, oh, this is crap, like let's refine it and play it again. Oh, this is still crap, but a little bit less than it was. And it's just that over and over and over and over. It's an iterative process. Anyone looking to just, design their own thing, those are sort of the first step. That's kind of the main course. To get into the industry itself, that is a bit harder to give advice for. I actually feel very lucky that I was even able to break into the industry. I just happened to see a job posting by Fantasy Flight Games years ago. It was even very random that I wandered on the FFG website when I did. Like, I guess they put that posting up a couple weeks before, and from what I was told, they were about to take it down. Like, it was only going to be active for like 2 or 3 more days, and I just happened to wander on there. So, in the application process, the interview process, like, I got hired, but there were a lot of other great candidates that could have very easily been hired in my place. So I really kind of just rolled. I've been playing like way too much Baldur's Gate 3. And so, I rolled a natural 20 basically in that process. I got really, really lucky. But, a lot of times for other people who maybe don't get, hired very directly by like a company like at FFG, I think generally the route is to make a design, refine it, get it to the point where it's fun, where you enjoy playing it, you get feedback that it's fun, you take it to people who don't even know you, because sometimes friends and family, they won't always tell you honestly. So like taking it to conventions or taking it to board game shops and getting other people to play it that you've never met before, listening to their feedback. And like once you've done that enough and the feedback that you get is, oh, this is a really good game, I think that's generally when you can kind of go to a publisher. You can either, schedule a meeting with them, sometimes at the big conventions. I know they do that at Gen Con, for instance. Sometimes you can, even email them, hey, I have this design. Are you potentially interested? I think that route tends to be a little less successful, but, I think I know there are publishers out there who will sometimes accept a design if you can kind of put together a pitch, maybe send them like kind of the vision of what you're trying to create. If it sounds interesting and it sounds fun, I think a lot of publishers are at least willing to take a look. So, yeah, if you can get hired by a big company, that's awesome. But a lot of people don't get that lucky, and I think the alternative route is just to make the best game you can make, and find someone who likes it as much as you do and is willing to publish it.
Sounds like a lot of good advice there. A voice of experience, right? So thanks for sharing.
I actually need to bust out. Michael, thank you so much for coming back. It's great to talk to you again.
Yeah, same to you. It's always a pleasure to be on.
Michael, thanks so much for coming on. This has been great. It's been really nice to have you on again, and I'm glad we were able to find the right time with the crazy time zones that we could all get on. I want to thank Bill for coming on and creating most of the questions that we asked. We put our loyal minion to work here. So thank you, Bill.
It was a pleasure to meet you. Nice talking to you. I often get a chance to talk to the designers of your favorite game. So thank you so much for this game, and thanks for coming on and talking with us.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
All right. Well, if folks want to get a hold of us, they have any questions, maybe we could pass along. Mike, how are they going to do that?
Yes, they can email us at criticalencounterspod@gmail.com. We are Critical Encounters on Facebook, and you can find us on YouTube or Patreon by searching for Critical Encounters Podcast. And on Discord, we are Vardane, Big Foam Blow, Wandering 2, and Board Game Lawyer. If you like our show, tell your friends. If you don't like our show, tell your enemies. Mojo, take us out.
72,000 channels and nothing worth watching. You think there might be something on mojo-tivo or Spineless Spice channel? And Mike.
Hey, Boggs, nice to hear you again. Is that a squeaker toy I heard?
I heard it too.
I definitely heard a squeaker toy.
Nice.
All right, guys, it's me playing with my toys over here.
Can't bring Bill anywhere.
What were we doing?